Whether you're just getting started with watercolor and you're wanting to develop your water and brush control, or maybe you're farther ahead but you're wanting to practice essential washes such as the variegated wash and the flat wash so that you can tackle more complex projects with greater confidence and ease, this fun little project is for you. Let's jump right in and let's practice together step by step. We're only going to be needing 4 different colors for this one. And there is no need to use exactly my same paint colors. As long as you're using something similar, you're gonna do just great. This first color that I'm going to be bringing in is New Gamboge. New Gamboge is a warm yellow. The second color is Pyrrol Scarlet, which is a warm red. This is Carbazole Violet from Daniel Smith, which is a very intense blue-leaning purple. And finally, I'm also using Payne's gray, which is a cooler blue biased gray. You can really use any gray or black that you have available for this little project. All right, first things first, we need to work on our pencil sketch. I am using an HB pencil and I'm making sure to keep my drawing nice and light so that I don't see my pencil work through the paint at the end. I will be making my outline sketch available for you as a download in case you'd like to transfer it and move on to the watercolor painting. That'll be available for you at the end of this post. Feel free to bring in your artistic license as you're working on this sketch. Change the shapes of the cacti, change the shapes of the mountains. You can do whatever you'd like. Just make sure that most of the elements that you want to be gray or black stay closer to the bottom and that you don't take too much of that sky space so that we can really practice our variegated wash in the sky and bring in different colors. I start with my ground line and I do make sure to add in some irregularity so that I can create the illusion of grasses and plants on the ground. And this little scene is created completely from imagination, but even in these cases, I try my best to bring in some amount of asymmetrical balance into this little composition. I create the largest cactus in the left half, and then I create a smaller group of cacti on the opposite side to counterbalance that visual weight. As I move on with my painting, I do end up removing one of these smaller, rounder cactuses that I draw near the center. And I do add in 2 mountains, making sure to plan which is going to be closer and which one is going to be farther back, because this will be a little bit of a tonal or value study where we bring in atmospheric perspective in the sense that we're making the farthest away mountain lighter in value than the mountain that is closer, and then the elements that are closer to us are going to be even darker than that. And this is to create a sense of distance and what's closer and what's farther back. Once that's ready, I go ahead and start preparing my color mixtures that I'm going to be needing for my sky. You want a good amount of these warm colors ready to go on your palette, and make sure that your puddles have a coffee to milk consistency, meaning you want a good amount of paint in those mixtures. You don't want them super watery because we will be using the pre-wetting technique where there's already going to be some amount of water on your paper, and if your paint mixtures are too watery, your color is going to look too pale. I'll be linking to my video on different watercolor paint consistencies down below in the recommended resources in case you'd like to check that one out. If your color looks too pale, you're likely going to find the need to layer on more and more paint to achieve the desired effect and intensity, and that will make it more likely that you will arrive at splotchiness and texture because your paper will start to dry along the way. Don't be afraid to go in with a good amount of paint. Remember that watercolor dries lighter than how it looks when it's wet. All right, so I made my way from the lightest color toward my darkest color that I'm going to be using in my sky. That first lightest color is going to be New Gamboge. That is the one that I'm going to be starting with. And then I'm going to be making my way gradually toward my darkest color as I am painting my sky. This doesn't mean that I can't go back to my previous colors, but I do try to go through that sequence, especially as I am starting with the sky. The second color is going to be a mix of my New Gamboge plus my Pyrrol Scarlet. a bit of an orange there. Then my third color is Pyrrol Scarlet on its own. And then finally, I created a reddish purple color, which is a mix of Carbazole Violet and a little bit of my Pyrrol Scarlet. I wanted to add some Pyrrol Scarlet into the purple so that that purple can have a little bit of that red that is already going to be present in the sky background behind the clouds. This will integrate those colors a little bit more. With my color mixtures ready, I'm gonna go ahead and start pre-wetting my entire watercolor sheet here. And for this, I am using my size 6 mop brush. I'm taking a little bit of water at a time from my container and gently smoothing it on my paper using horizontal and vertical brush strokes. Don't scrub, be gentle. You don't want to start damaging the sizing of your paper, but do make sure to go over everything multiple times. Go back to that spot where you started and re-wet over and over again until you see a nice even sheen all throughout your sheet. If you rush this pre-wetting process, certain parts of your paper are going to start drying on you as you're painting your sky, and this can lead to splotchiness and too much texture as opposed to soft diffused effects. Once you see that even sheen, go ahead and load up your paintbrush bristles with your first lightest color. And in this case, the lightest color is going to be at the bottom because the sun is already setting behind those mountains. I've started with my yellow right along the tops of those mountains, and I'm painting right over the cacti using horizontal brush strokes. I'm not really trying to create a uniform finish with these colors. I want to create irregularity and imperfection in the sky to make this look more natural. After painting in some yellow brush strokes, I loaded up my brush with some of my red and yellow mixture, painted in some orange brush strokes along the middle, and then I loaded up my brush with some of my Pyrrol Scarlet and I painted that at the top. Then I went in with more of my orange and I did some gentle brush strokes along the red and also a little bit into the yellow to make sure that the transitions between my different colors are gradual. Once I had these three colors in, I tilted my cutting mat to create softer transitions between my colors using gravity to my advantage. Don't worry if some of this color gets into the bottom elements of your piece because all of that is going to be covered with the grays and blacks that we're going to be using. And then I started intensifying my colors by painting in a little bit more of each. Everything is still wet and workable because I took my time with the pre-wetting process and because I have been working quickly. I'm still using my size 6 mop brush for this, and I did create more of my orange and my red, and I am now going in with more of a milk or even cream consistency because I'm really trying to deepen and darken certain parts of my sky while keeping that gradient, right? Red at the top, orange in the middle, and yellow at the bottom. If you want to soften effects, I would recommend experimenting with tilting your board as opposed to manually going in and trying to soften transitions between your colors with your brush. Once I was happy with the intensity of my colors and the overall effects created here in my background sky wash, it was time to start painting in my purplish clouds. I switch on over to my size 14 round brush for this. And you might want to allow that paint to settle on your paper for just a bit longer before painting in your clouds. It all depends on how wet your paper is at this point. You definitely want your paper to be wet because otherwise you won't be left with these soft transitions around the edges of your clouds. But if your paper is too wet, your purple might end up just expanding and moving around way too much to the point that you have no control. I take some of my red purple and I start applying it wherever I want to create the illusion of purplish clouds. I'm using soft horizontal brush strokes, sometimes just touching the tip of my paintbrush to my paper, and other times just pressing down a tiny bit more. trying to create very irregular shapes here and asymmetrical shapes. When I'm painting clouds and anything natural and organic, I want to make sure that I'm not creating patterns or shapes that are too organized or stiff looking. And another important thing about painting clouds that can help increase the believable sense of open space and depth in the scene is that clouds that are closer to the horizon line should be smaller or less tall than clouds that are higher up in the picture plane. Right around here, before my paper starts to dry, I go ahead and wrap one of my index fingers with my absorbent towel and gently blot the spot where I want the setting sun to be, right behind my mountains. You can place your sun wherever you think it's best in your scene. And then, because my paper is still wet and workable, I go ahead and start intensifying certain parts of my clouds by painting in a little bit more of my red purple just here and there. I'm not trying to make my clouds super dark, and I definitely don't want to make my sky too dark by adding too many clouds. So make sure that you don't go overboard with your clouds. And it's finally time to allow everything to dry completely. And as you can see, everything has lightened a lot as it has dried. It is now time to start painting in that first gray layer. I can still see my pencil sketch well. If you need to go in and sketch anything again, you definitely can, as long as everything is completely dry, so that you can avoid damaging your paper with the sharp tip of your pencil. I'm going to use my size 14 round brush for this first layer, and I prepare my first puddle of plain Payne's gray. This puddle is a coffee consistency, so approximately 50% paint, 50% water is what I'm going for. This is going to be the lightest gray layer. And with this puddle of gray ready, I go ahead and load up my brush and paint in the entire thing. I paint in all of the elements at the bottom at once: the cacti, the ground and the grass, and both mountains. And this we're going to be painting wet on dry. So it is important that we paint quickly. Load up your brush as you go whenever you need to, pick up that bead and continue. I am right-handed, so for me it is easier to work left to right. And as soon as I feel that my paint is starting to run out, I load up more paint and continue where I left off. Try not to spend too long filling in the more complex, more narrow shapes in those cacti. Do your best to paint swiftly and keep it moving. Otherwise, it's likely you'll be left with sharp edges and textures around the shapes as they dry. Once you're done, make sure to allow everything to dry completely, and then it's time to get started with our second gray layer for closer elements. We're going to be doing 3 gray layers in total, so we're still going to be missing those closest elements, which we're going to be working on next after the second layer has dried. And if you can't see your pencil work very clearly anymore, I would recommend tracing over it again in pencil. Just make sure that everything is completely dry so that you don't damage your watercolor sheet with the sharp tip of your pencil. It is important that you are able to see those shapes that you're going to be filling in. I once again reach for my size 14 round brush for this gray layer. And for this, I'm going to prepare some of my Payne's gray once again in a coffee consistency on my palette. I load up a good amount of Payne's gray in my paintbrush bristles, and I now paint everything once again, excluding the farthest away mountain. So the only thing that you're not going to be painting over this time is the mountain that is farther back. In my case, it's the mountain on the right. It's very important that when you are painting wet on dry, you use a large enough brush for the areas and the shapes that you're painting in. If you try to paint this quickly using a very small brush, that is going to make the process a lot harder because smaller brushes simply cannot hold enough water and paint in those bristles, and essentially you want to be able to not have to reload every few seconds, because every time you do that, there's more of a chance that you'll arrive at sharp edges and texture because things will start drying on you. So make sure to pick a large enough brush always for what you're doing. I live in an environment that is usually very warm and dry, so things dry pretty fast for me as I'm painting, which is usually why I prefer pre-wetting when I am working on large areas and those beginning washes. Here I end up going over the entire thing again with my gray because I do fill in a section that I wasn't intending to fill in my mountain farther back. Sometimes when I need to correct something, I would just rather go over the entire thing again in order to avoid patches. After working on this second layer, I allow everything to dry once again, and we can now see this clear distinction between the mountain that is farthest back, which is a lighter gray, and the closer elements, the closer mountain and all the cacti and plants that are closer to us as the viewer of the scene, which is a darker gray. So now that everything is completely dry, once again, it is time to work on our final gray layer, which is going to be the darkest layer. If you can't see your pencil work, I would recommend sketching that again so that you can understand the shapes that you're filling in. And this time, we're going to go in with more of a milk consistency because we really want to push the contrast in this final layer for the elements that are closest to us, the cacti and the plants on the ground. You can see how thick I went with that mixture on my palette. And I'm still using my size 14 round brush, and I do have my size 6 brush on hand right there to my left, so that once I'm done filling in the general kind of overall rough shape, I can go ahead and switch to this smaller brush and use it for some texture marks on the ground, hopefully while that paint is still wet, so that I can just do some quick flicking motions and move that wet paint upward to create the illusion of grasses and plants on the ground. I'm already adding some of that irregularity on the ground as I am filling in the general shape with my larger brush, but it is helpful to switch to a smaller brush for that more controlled, finer detail. But first things first, and I want to make sure that I'm filling in this area as quickly as possible with a larger brush. You can also use a smaller brush to fix any rough edges around your darkest shapes. All right, so here I have quickly switched on over to my size 6 round, and I'm gonna work on some flicking going up from the bottom to enhance those grasses and making sure to create a lot of imperfection on the ground, clustering the grass together in different ways, and also incorporating slight curves so that I don't create too much stiffness. Things have started to dry on me pretty quickly, so I do have to take gray from my palette as I am painting in these last grasses. And with that, we're all done with this watercolor desert sunset scene. I really hope that you found this one fun and relaxing, and that you're a little bit more confident with these essential watercolor techniques. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down below in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks so much for joining me on this one, and see you very, very soon for another tutorial, another art tips video, or another live stream. Enjoy your art practice, and see you soon.